My parents took $50,000 to stay quiet after a hospital stole my DNA at 14, now I'm 17, and the nurse who used it just asked me to raise the son I never knew I had. When I asked my mom why she hid it, she whispered, "Because we thought you'd never find out." I didn't answer. That was 9 months ago. Yesterday, she sat in the front row at his kindergarten graduation, holding a sign that said, "Go Lucas." I was scrolling through TikTok on the couch when my mom walked in holding a stack of envelopes. Christmas was 3 weeks ago, and she'd made the whole family do those 23andMe tests as her idea of family bonding. "Your results came in," Mom said, tossing me the envelope. She seemed weirdly tense, but I figured she was just stressed about work. I ripped it open while she stood there watching me. The ancestry stuff was boring. Then I scrolled down to the DNA relatives section. My heart stopped. Right there at the top it said, "Child, male, age 3, living within 50 miles. I laughed because what else was I supposed to do? "Mom, their system is broken. Says I have a kid." I showed her my phone screen. The color drained from her face completely. She grabbed the phone from my hands and stared at it. Then she called for my dad in that voice she only uses when something is seriously wrong. Dad came downstairs and they both studied my phone like it was some ancient artifact. They kept exchanging these looks. Finally, Dad said we needed to talk. That's when I started feeling sick to my stomach. They sat me down at the kitchen table like they did when they told me Grandpa died. "There's something we need to tell you," Mom started. Her hands were shaking. "When you were 14, you had your tonsils removed at Riverside Medical." I remembered that. Worst week of my life. Nothing but ice cream and pain meds. "Yeah, so what does that have to do with anything?" Dad cleared his throat. "A few months after your surgery, we got a letter from the hospital. There had been some irregularities with their procedures. They offered us a settlement if we signed some papers." My brain wasn't computing what they were saying. Mom jumped in. "We didn't think you'd ever need to know. The hospital was harvesting genetic material from patients during routine procedures, selling it to fertility clinics." I stood up so fast, the chair fell over. "You're telling me someone stole my sperm when I was 14, and you knew about it?" "We didn't know they'd actually use it," Dad said. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. "The lawyer said the samples were destroyed in the investigation." My phone buzzed. An email from 23andMe. Someone had messaged me through their system. Pili Dogan, the woman who'd used my stolen DNA to have a baby. I clicked on her profile, and there was a picture. A little boy with my exact eyes staring back at me. Mom was crying now. "We took the money for your college fund, $50,000. We thought we were protecting you." I felt like I was drowning. Some stranger out there was raising my biological son. A kid I never chose to create. A kid who existed because a hospital violated me when I was barely a teenager. The room started spinning. The next few days were a blur of lawyers and paperwork. Turns out Pili Dogan was a nurse at Riverside who got fired during the investigation. She'd stolen several samples before they caught her. Used mine for her own IVF procedure. The lawyer said she was filing for child support now because she'd lost her job and was desperate. We met at the lawyer's office a week later. She brought Lucas. That was his name. Lucas. He had my nose and my stupid cowlick that never stays down. He was playing with a tablet in the corner while the adults talked about money and custody and rights. Pili looked exhausted, broken. She kept apologizing and crying. Said she'd been 35 and single and couldn't afford regular IVF. Said she picked me from the medical files because I had good grades and no health issues, like I was a product in a catalog. "I know what I did was wrong," she said, "but I love him. He's my whole world. I just can't afford to take care of him alone anymore." The lawyer was talking about our options, how we could fight it, how she'd committed fraud, how we could probably get her arrested, but I couldn't stop staring at Lucas. He looked up at me and smiled. He had no idea his whole existence was based on a crime. That's when Pili dropped the real bomb. "I have stage 3 lymphoma. Started treatment last month. I need to know someone will take care of him if I don't make it." My parents went silent. The lawyer stopped writing. Lucas kept playing his game, oblivious to how his world was about to change. And I sat there, 17 years old, trying to figure out how to be a father to a kid I never knew existed. A kid who only existed because adults I trusted violated me and covered it up. The meeting ended without any decisions. We're still figuring it out. But I added Pili on Facebook yesterday. She posts videos of Lucas constantly. He likes dinosaurs and hates vegetables, just like I did at that age. I scrolled through more of her posts that night. Lucas at the park, Lucas eating ice cream, Lucas building blocks. Each video felt like watching a life I should have been part of but wasn't. My hands shook as I watched him blow out 3 candles on a dinosaur cake. Mom knocked on my door around midnight. She came in without waiting for an answer and sat on the edge of my bed. The mattress creaked under her weight. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "We thought we were protecting you," she whispered. I kept scrolling through Pili's Facebook. Lucas in a Halloween costume. Lucas at the zoo. Lucas sleeping in what looked like a hospital bed with an IV in his arm. The timestamp said 2 weeks ago. "You took $50,000 to keep quiet about someone stealing part of me," I said. She flinched. "The lawyer said the samples were destroyed. We never imagined." "You never imagined what? That someone would use them? That I'd find out? That there'd be a kid out there with my DNA who thinks some criminal is his only family?" Mom stood up and walked to my window. She pressed her forehead against the glass. "We were scared. You were so young. The hospital threatened to drag it out in court for years. They said you'd have to testify about what they did during the surgery. We couldn't put you through that." I closed Facebook and threw my phone on the nightstand. "So instead, you let me find out from a DNA test that I have a son. Real protective, Mom." She turned around. Tears streaked her face. "What do you want us to do? We can't change what happened. I want you to stop lying to me. I want you to stop making decisions about my life without telling me. I stopped because I didn't know what I wanted. Some kid I'd never met was dying to meet his dad, except his dad was a 17-year-old who just found out out he existed. Mom left without saying anything else. I heard her crying in her room through the thin walls. Dad's voice rumbled low, trying to comfort her. I pulled my pillow over my head but couldn't block out the sound. The next morning, I called the lawyer myself. Mr. Patterson sounded surprised to hear from me. I want to meet Lucas again. Without all the lawyers and offices and paperwork. He cleared his throat. That's not advisable at this time. Mr. Dogan is pursuing child support and any interaction could be seen as... I hung up on him. Pilly had included her number in her Facebook message. I stared at it for 20 minutes before dialing. She answered on the first ring. Hello? It's me. It's me. Silence stretched between us. I heard Lucas laughing in the background. I'm sorry, she finally said. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but can I see him? Just normally? Like at a park or something? She made a sound that might have been a sob. He's been asking about his dad. I told him his dad was sick. I didn't know what else to say. We agreed to meet at Riverside Park that Saturday. Neutral ground, no lawyers, no parents, just us and Lucas. I told my parents that night at dinner. Dad dropped his fork. Mom pushed her plate away. Absolutely not, Dad said. She's suing us for child support. Any contact needs to go through lawyers. She's suing because she's dying and has no money. Her kid, my kid, needs someone. And you two decided 3 years ago that I didn't need to know about any of this, so I don't really care what you think I should do now. Mom reached across the table. Honey, we understand you're upset. I stood up. Upset? I have a son. A 3-year-old son who exists because a hospital stole from me and you took money to keep quiet about it. Upset doesn't even begin to cover it. I spent the next 3 days researching everything I could about lymphoma. Stage 3. Treatable but serious. 5-year survival rate around 70%. I learned about chemotherapy schedules and side effects. I learned about medical bills and how they destroy families. I learned about single mothers who make desperate choices. Saturday came too fast. I sat in my car outside the park for 10 minutes before getting out. My legs felt like jelly. Through the playground fence, I could see Pilly pushing Lucas on a swing. He was laughing, his head thrown back, that same cowlick sticking up just like mine. Pilly saw me first. She whispered something to Lucas and pointed. He looked over, suddenly shy. She walked him to where I stood by the fence. Lucas, this is your dad. He hid behind her leg, peeking out at me. Hi, he whispered. Hey buddy, your mom says you like dinosaurs. His eyes lit up. I have a T-Rex and a Brachiosaurus and a Triceratops. Wow, that's awesome. I used to have dinosaur toys too. He stepped out from behind Pilly. Really? Really. I still have some in my closet actually. We walked to a bench while Lucas ran back to the playground. Pilly looked worse than she had at the lawyer's office. Thinner, paler, dark circles under her eyes. The treatment is expensive, she said without preamble. I lost my job when the investigation started. Been working retail, but the chemo schedule makes it hard. I didn't want to contact you. I swear I didn't, but I can't. I need help. I watched Lucas climb the jungle gym. $50,000 to stay quiet about stealing DNA from a 14-year-old? I'm trying to understand how his parents justified keeping this massive secret for 3 years. He moved carefully, testing each bar before committing, just like I used to. What you did was wrong, I said. I know, like really, really wrong. You stole from me, from a kid. I know. Her voice cracked. I think about it every day, every time I look at him, but I can't regret him. I won't regret him. He's the best thing in my life. Lucas waved from the top of the slide. We both waved back. What happens if the treatment doesn't work? I asked. Pilly pulled her jacket tighter. I don't have family. His father, well, you know that situation. I've been trying to figure out options, but who's going to take in the kid of someone who stole genetic material? She nodded. We sat in silence while Lucas played. Other parents pushed their kids on swings, helped them down slides, caught them at the bottom. Normal families doing normal things. Nothing about our situation was normal. I want to be in his life, I heard myself say. Not because of lawyers or child support or whatever, but because he's mine. Even if I didn't choose it, even if it happened the worst way possible, he's mine. Pilly started crying, quiet tears that she quickly wiped away. I didn't expect that. I thought you'd hate us. Hate him. I hate what you did. I hate that my parents lied. I hate that I'm 17 and have to figure out how to be a dad, but I don't hate him. He didn't ask for any of this either. Lucas ran over, out of breath. Mom! Dad! Watch this! He ran back to the playground and did a wobbly cartwheel. Dad. He called me dad like it was the most natural thing in the world. We should probably talk about the legal stuff, Pilly said. I know you don't want lawyers involved, but my parents have money. The money they got from the hospital actually. Seems fitting it should go to Lucas. She shook her head. I don't want their money. I need to know he'll be okay. If something happens, I need legal documentation that says you'll take him. My phone buzzed. Mom texting, asking where I was. I ignored it. We'll figure it out, I said. All of it. The money, the custody stuff, everything. But right now, can we just let him play? She nodded. We stayed at the park until the sun started setting. Lucas showed me his dinosaur impressions. I pushed him on the swings. Pilly took pictures, probably for her Facebook. For 3 hours, we pretended to be a normal family at the park. As we were leaving, Lucas grabbed my hand. His fingers were so small in mine. Will you come back? He asked. I looked at Pilly. She nodded slightly. Yeah, buddy, I'll come back. He smiled, and my heart broke a little more. This kid loved so easily, trusted so completely. He had no idea his whole world was built on lies and crimes and desperate choices. I drove home in silence. My parents were waiting in the living room, looking like they'd been arguing. We need to talk about boundaries, Dad started. I walked past them to my room. There would be time for arguments and boundaries and lawyers. Right now, I just needed to process that I'd spent the afternoon with my son who called me dad, my son who existed because of a crime everyone wanted to pretend hadn't happened. I pulled out my old box of dinosaur toys from the closet, dusty plastic figures I hadn't touched in years. Tomorrow I'd clean them off, maybe bring them to the park next time. Lucas would like that. My phone buzzed, a Facebook notification. Pilly had tagged me in a photo. Lucas on the swings, me pushing him, both of us laughing. The caption just said, Dad, thank you. I accepted the tag. Let people see. Let them ask questions. I was tired of secrets. Mom knocked again. Honey, can we please talk? Tomorrow, I called back. We'll talk tomorrow. Tonight, I just wanted to look at pictures of my son and try to figure out how to be 17 and a father at the same time. How to love a kid who came from a crime. How to forgive parents who lied. How to help a dying woman who stole from me but loved the result more than anything. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and arguments and decisions. Tonight, I just scrolled through 3 years of photos I'd missed, memorizing the face of a little boy who had my eyes and my cowlick and my old love of dinosaurs. The morning brought exactly what I'd expected. Mom and Dad sat at the kitchen table with coffee and serious expressions. I grabbed a bowl of cereal and joined them, ready for round 2. Dad started with his prepared speech about legal ramifications and protecting our family's interests. Mom chimed in with concerns about emotional manipulation and getting too attached. I let them talk while I ate my cereal, nodding occasionally to show I was listening. When they finished, I pushed my empty bowl aside. I explained that Lucas was my son, regardless of how he came to exist. I told them about watching him play, seeing myself in his movements, feeling a connection I couldn't ignore. Dad's jaw tightened. Mom's eyes filled with tears again. The conversation went in circles until I stood up and announced I was meeting Pilly and Lucas again that afternoon, this time at her apartment. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Mom gasped. I walked out before they could launch into another lecture. Pilly's apartment complex sat on the edge of town, one of those places with peeling paint and broken playground equipment. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, my stomach churning with each step. The hallway smelled like old carpet and cooking grease. She opened the door before I could knock. Lucas peeked out from behind her legs, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. The apartment was small but clean, toys scattered across the living room floor, medical bills stacked on the coffee table, a calendar on the wall marked with chemotherapy appointments. Lucas warmed up quickly this time. He showed me his dinosaur collection, explaining each one's special powers. I sat on the floor with him, making dinosaur noises and staging epic battles. Pilly watched from the couch, looking even more exhausted than before. After an hour of playing, Lucas fell asleep on the carpet, still clutching his T-Rex. Pilly covered him with a blanket and motioned for me to follow her to the kitchen. She poured 2 glasses of water and leaned against the counter. She pulled out a folder from a drawer and slid it across to me. Inside were medical records, treatment plans, bills marked past due in red. The numbers made my head spin. Tens of thousands of dollars, insurance covering barely half. I studied the papers while she explained her situation. Lost her nursing license after the investigation. Working minimum wage at a grocery store. Missing shifts for chemo. Behind on rent. Running out of options. She showed me another document. A will she'd drafted. My name listed as Lucas's guardian if something happened to her. My hands shook as I read it. This was real. Too real. I asked about her treatment, her prognosis. She shrugged and said the doctors were optimistic, but nothing was guaranteed. She needed to focus on getting better, but the stress of finances made everything worse. The way she looked at me made it clear what she was asking without actually asking. I left that afternoon with my head spinning. Lucas had woken up and hugged me goodbye. His little arms around my neck felt like chains and lifelines at the same time. Back home, I found Mom in my room, going through my laptop. She jumped when I walked in, guilty but defiant. She'd found my research on lymphoma, on custody laws, on Pilly's background. We argued. She accused Pilly of manipulating me. I accused her of invading my privacy. Neither of us backed down. Dad joined the argument, bringing printouts from a private investigator he'd hired, Pilly's credit history, her work record, even her dating profile from years ago. I felt sick looking at it. This violation of someone already desperate. They painted a picture of an unstable woman who'd make terrible choices, who'd stolen genetic material, who was now using her illness to trap me. I threw the papers in the trash and stormed out. I drove around for hours, ending up at the park where I'd first met Lucas. Empty swings moved in the wind. I sat on the bench and tried to sort through the mess in my head. My parents weren't wrong about Pilly's past, but they hadn't seen Lucas, hadn't felt that connection. My phone rang. Pilly's number. Her voice sounded strange, slurred. She was at the hospital. Bad reaction to the chemo. No one to watch Lucas. Could I come? I broke several traffic laws getting there. Found Lucas in the waiting room with a worried nurse. He ran to me, crying. I picked him up and he buried his face in my shoulder. The nurse explained that Pilly was stable, but would be admitted overnight. Did I have legal authority to take the child? I lied. Said I was his father, which was technically true. Showed my ID. The nurse looked skeptical but had bigger problems to deal with. I carried Lucas out to my car, realizing I had no car seat. No idea what I was doing. We stopped at a store. I bought a car seat, struggling to install it while Lucas watched. Bought some pull-ups because I didn't know if he was potty trained. Goldfish crackers because kids like those, right? My hands shook the entire time. I couldn't take him home. My parents would lose it. Instead, I drove to my friend Jake's house. His older sister had kids. Maybe she'd know what to do. Jake answered the door, took one look at me holding a toddler, and his eyes went wide. His sister, thankfully, was home. She helped without asking too many questions, showed me how to properly buckle the car seat, gave me tips on bedtime routines, lent me some toys and books her kids had outgrown. I texted my parents that I was staying at Jake's. Mom called 17 times. I didn't answer. Lucas needed dinner, a bath, someone to read him stories, someone to be there when he woke up crying for his mom. That night was the longest of my life. Lucas doing cartwheels and calling him dad, like he's been practicing in the mirror for weeks. Meanwhile, our teen hero's processing fatherhood faster than his AP biology homework ever prepared him. Lucas woke up every hour, confused and scared. I held him, rocked him, made up stories about brave dinosaurs. By morning, we were both exhausted,